Greetings, cartoon connoisseurs, and welcome to the Animation Conversation, where we explore the art form from pencils to pixels. And now, here are your hosts, Rusty Shackleford and F.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Animation Conversation. I'm Rusty here with...
What's up, party people? It's your old pal, F.
Awesome. And F, I guess you get to take it away here on this one. I know that Rule 34 will be discussed. Might come up in that. So Rule 34, for those of you who don't know, is
wait, I know what Rule 34 is. That's the rule where if you're traveling through time, you are not allowed to mess with the inhabitants of the planet because you're not allowed to mess up their history. Is that correct?
Oh
no, wait, that's Prime Directive.
Yeah.
No,
It's a little different than that. So Rule 34 is if it exists, there's probably porn made about it. If it exists, there you go. So I'll let you go ahead and take it away there, F.
Yeah, and see, I'm gonna right out of the gate sort of, and maybe our guest will help me distinguish or not distinguish this, because the topic that I wanted to sort of cover today is one that struck me when I first started becoming active on Twitter, which is really only a couple of years ago. That there's this whole subculture of both animation and cartooning out there called NSFW, not suitable for work cartoons. And I'm very fascinated by it, and some of it I think is really, really terrific, such as the work done by our guest, and some of it is absolute garbage. So I did want to just discuss it as a topic of conversation, because I'm a fan of things like pinup art and girly drawings and that sort of thing, and so I kind of wanted to discuss the relationship of not suitable for work art as part of cartooning culture in general. But we should point out, if not suitable for work art offends you, or if the topic offends you, or really if anything offends you, you probably shouldn't listen to this episode and stick around for the next episode where we'll talk about Bluey or something like that. But for now, happy to introduce our guest, who is also the host of Meeting Halfway, who was kind enough to have me on that not long ago, VeronicaaandJELLY.
Hello, I'm Veronica. Great to be here, guys. Thank you for inviting me on.
Glad to have you.
First of all, thank you for coming on, and thank you for it's early in Los Angeles for you, and I know you've jumped through all sorts of hoops that we shouldn't have made you jump through, but we really.
This is the first time I've woken up at a reasonable hour in like months. So you're doing me a favor. Who knows? Maybe it'll fix my sleeping schedule.
You'd be surprised how quickly you can kind of adapt to becoming a morning person. I never thought I would be. Certainly not when I was living in.
I used to be. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. I worked at a middle school, and I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning and drove from like Burbank to like Los Angeles.
What did you do at a middle school?
I was my official title was elementary librarian / media technician, but really I was hired on to be an elementary school librarian, because apparently like they fired all of their librarians during like Obama era, and so they're like, oh, now it's time to hire a bunch of new ones who aren't like licensed or have degrees, and so they hired me. And it just so happened that the school I worked at, they didn't need a librarian, they needed like an IT person. So I was like a middle school IT person for like 3 years.
Well, so for those of you who are not familiar, Veronica does work on her. What's your It's at VeronicaaandJELLY, right?
Yeah, it's just at VeronicaaandJELLY.
Does really, really fabulous artwork that is of the NSFW variety, but it's of that variety. I find it incredibly charming.
Thank you.
Like it's and again, I'm not judging anybody any one way or the other. I've seen lots of not suitable for work art that I did in fact find positively repugnant, just because I think that's what they were going for. So hooray for you, good job. But, so first of all, right away, everyone should check out our artwork, because even just on its own merit, you're 10 times the illustrator that I am.
Oh, you. No, I think you're better at compositing things than I am.
You're a much better animator than I am. But before we get too deep in that, I'm really curious. You know, you just mentioned the library. Can you fill us in a little bit on your journey?
Sure, yeah. You're gonna find this actually pretty funny. So growing up, I loved Pokemon and Sailor Moon, and I watched Fairly Odd Parents all the time, and Hey Arnold, and so I was very influenced by cartoons and animation at a really early age, but when I was going into high school, like middle school, high school, my mom signed me up for the Explorers program. And for those who don't know what the Explorers program is, it's a program dedicated for children between 14 and 21 who can pretty much be trained in like a police setting. Pretty much you're just doing police training at a young age. You're like, oh, you're like a little cadet, right? So I did that for like 5 years and did like Marine boot camp training too. So for a really long time,
You're a badass.
Oh, wow.
I'm what's her name? G.I. Jane.
G.I. Jane.
for a really long time, I wanted to be a police officer and work in law enforcement.
Wow.
And I don't think you know what it was is after I graduated high school, I did college for a bit and I hated it. And
Where'd you go?
I went to Cypress College for a bit because they have a very good mortician. They have a very good mortician plan there. But then I ended up switching to Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa. And so I went there for a couple years, but around this time, I didn't take school very seriously. I didn't take college very seriously. I felt like it was unnecessary for me to go to college if I wanted to be a police officer, because really I'd have to go to police academy, and I wouldn't need any college for that. And B, if I decided to be an artist, I was like, well, I don't fucking need college. I just need to draw. Oh, by the way, is this a no cursing?
No, we're talking about not safe for work art. Yeah, you're pretty good to cuss. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was just kind of like, fuck this. I don't need college. I'll just not go to college and work a day job and draw and figure it out. And I did that for like 5 years. And Instagram was becoming a thing. So I started just posting my art on Instagram at first. That was kind of where I got my following. So for a couple years, I would only engage on Instagram, and then I slowly started streaming more. And as I was like kind of diving into the internet more, I started finding a community of other artists online who do the same thing I do, where they just draw something on a piece of paper or a sketch pad and they take a picture of it on their phone and upload it on Instagram. And I wasn't even drawing digitally at this point. I think this was like 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, around 2012. I wasn't drawing digital. I didn't start drawing digitally until 2013 or 14.
Well, people forget tablets are expensive.
Yes. And at that time, like, I feel like at that time drawing with like a tablet or an iPad, like that was not common. People didn't do that. I didn't even know where I can get a tablet. I didn't even know what a tablet was called.
Well, the drawing technology for tablets then wasn't really to where it is now either. Like you didn't have all like the soft touch stuff on the tablets. You didn't have none of that. Like if you put your hand on it, you'd have a big line where your hand sat, kind of thing.
Yeah, with no pen pressure. And...
Yeah.
This here Cintiq. This is my first Cintiq.
Really?
That I think I probably got around, I want to say 2010.
Wow, and it's still going,
old.
Dude.
It's still going, which probably means I'm just not working that hard. But
no, that's not true.
At the time that I got this, you couldn't find Cintiqs. Like they were, especially in LA.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember like how hard it was to come across a Cintiq. Like I wanted one for years. I still don't even have one.
Well, what's funny is at the time that I got this, I was working at 6 Point Harness, which has blossomed into this fantastic studio.
Yeah.
But they were still growing at the time. And when I got hired there, and we were doing a show for MTV, so it's not like it was some fly-by-night production. They were like, hey, you're hired. Do you mind bringing in your Cintiq into work every day? And I'm like, yes, I do mind. There's
every
no way I'm
day?
Yeah, no, because they couldn't get any.
That's ridiculous.
And
Every
I was
day.
like, no, I love you guys, but hell no, I'm not bringing it because I'm not putting it in my car. That's gonna put wear and tear on it.
I was gonna say you will dent that thing with like 10 years, minus 10 years, having to bring that in every day.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's like
the fact that this thing made it from Los Angeles to New York and it still works.
And
like
from New York to like where you are now too.
North Carolina, yeah, it like I'm astonished that I'm still plugging away at it. But anyway, getting back to you, can you take me back? You mentioned, start putting your drawings up and stuff like that. Where did your drawing journey begin? Like, when did you start drawing? When did you start saying this is what I want to do, or I want this to be part of my life?
I got to a certain point where this was like it's like unnecessary information but necessary at the same time. This was around the end of Obama's term, and like gas prices were fucking skyrocketing, and I couldn't find any job, and I was working at this place called Adventure City, which was a really shitty theme park for toddlers, and I was doing puppet shows. It was literally, I felt like I was at my rock bottom. It was pretty bad. Like I and you know what's funny is that's not even close to what my rock bottom was. It's hilarious. But at the time,
there are way worse ways to make a living.
Oh yeah. But it was the thing where it was like I wasn't going to college, so my parents were really upset at me. And I was working at Adventure City, so my parents were like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I couldn't afford gas because I'm getting like $90 a month, pretty much. Like. And I'm driving back, I'm trying to have a social life as like a just out of college or just out of high school, like, and so I started drawing more and posting it on Instagram, and like I realized that I was getting a lot of engagement for my doodles, and it was mostly like at the time I was mostly just drawing myself. I still draw myself, but I would draw like comics.
Me too, and you're way better looking than I am. So it's not like, I think that's just a thing artists do, it's.
You are unkind when you draw yourself, though. You have very pretty eyes. You don't like show your pretty eyes.
Oh, get out of here. If I did makeup on my eyes the way you do makeup on your eyes, it would look much better.
You should have let me for our episode.
But wait, before you go further, take me back. Like, did you draw as a kid? Take us back even further. Like,
yeah,
did you always draw?
Yeah, okay, I'll take you back further. So, rewind. I started drawing like really, really young, and the first thing I would draw was I would trace my Pokemon cards. I really wanted to keep my Pokemon cards in my pocket so I could pretend like my Pokemons were with me, but I didn't want to have my card in my pocket because I knew it'd break. I knew like the card would get ruined.
How old were you? How old were you when you were doing this?
I want to say like 4 or 5, like young, really young. This is like the earliest I can remember. And yeah, I remember I had an Articuno sticker or something. I didn't even have the Articuno card. I had an Articuno sticker, and I traced it, and I was like, "This is the best drawing I have ever made in my entire life." Like, I was like, "Wow!" And so I realized I was like, "Wow, I drew this really good." I traced it, but like I drew this really good,
That's how I learned to draw.
Honestly, that's how I learned to draw. I traced Pokemon cards and like my Sailor Moon like booklets. Like I would get like little Sailor Moon like stationery stuff,
I traced Mad Magazine and Superman comics.
Mad Magazine, that's great. I was very, what's funny is I was very influenced by Mad Magazine when I was younger too.
Yeah, same here. I used to get
comics.
Yeah, I didn't really like comics, but I like Mad. I really like Mad. The comics. I used to get it at the grocery store. So my mom, my parents were broke, but the one thing that she would always let me get at the grocery store was the new edition of the magazine or whatever. So I got that all the time.
See, everybody has this like great relationship with me. Did you know that Mad Magazine was for the longest time the only American magazine in existence that existed purely on reader subscriptions? They never had
really
ads. They never had ads.
That's crazy.
They were purely subscription based.
Now that you think about it, anytime there were an ad in it, it was a fake ad.
Right.
Like a joke ad. Yeah,
It was a joke.
I loved those.
That's hilarious.
Okay,
That is
so
very
you're 4
interesting.
years old. You're tracing your Pokemon cards. Go on.
Yeah, and I just kind of was like, my older sister also was very artistic as well. She
Okay.
ended up going down the nursing field, so now she's a nurse. But for a while, I was very, very jealous and envious of her abilities to draw, and I always saw it as a competition because, growing up in a Latino family with like 4 other siblings, and you're the middle child, everyone's kind of fighting to be the important one. So,
Sorry, but this is when you came over to interview me, this is one of those things that I brought up because I know you love documentaries, and the fact that you brought up this competition between you and your sister, this is one more reason why you must see the movie Crumb, because
I have been meaning to for so long.
it's about Robert Crumb, famous underground cartoonist.
Yes.
The reason he drew was because he was competing with his brothers.
That is okay. I'm gonna
have to watch that too. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that. I've never seen that one either.
I remember you told me about this, and then I was like, shit, yes, I have to watch it. And then I had to drive like around the country and forgot. So I'm gonna put a reminder on my phone right now because I actually do really want to watch this.
Not to be confused with the band Crumb. This is the movie Crumb.
Yeah.
Rusty, you would probably love Robert. Speaking of not suitable for work, his work is very not suitable for a lot of people, but he was a major influence on me, and one of those people that just he's kind of one of those comic book he's on the Mount Rushmore with Mad Magazine and that sort of thing.
Oh.
But anyway, so okay, I want to get from tracing on Pokemon cards to drawing titties. So
okay. So essentially, I can get there. Don't worry. So essentially, it was always a competition between me and my sister. She was always better at drawing Sailor Scouts than I was. That made me really, really jealous. So I would draw more and more and more. As she started like growing up and like going out and being social and being in high school and doing that, I always took those opportunities when I was not with friends, like because my parents would never let me go to like friends' houses ever. And my friends never really wanted to come to my house because it's fucking crazy with all my siblings and family members. So I would always end up being like, home at my house by myself while my other siblings were doing other things. So I would just take that time to draw, and I would I'd watch Sailor Moon. Like I had the VHSs and I watch it and then I'd pause it and try to draw that. And my sister and I would, we would always have like contests of who had the better comic rendition of like that episode of Sailor Moon. So like my sister would do a rendition of that episode, and then I would do a rendition of it in comic form, and we would see whose was better. Hers was always better. But as I grew up and was going into high school, I would just never pay attention in class and just brought sketchbooks and never brought textbooks and would always just draw like comic ideas. Like I really wanted to make a graphic novel in high school, and I really wanted to make a graphic novel like a manga or either, one or the other. I was very influenced by anime, and I was very influenced by like cartoons, just general cartoons that you would see on Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon. So like I would try to kind of like infuse the two. So I'd make a lot of like comics about me and my friends, and draw us like semi-anime, semi-cartoony. But I'd always make like me and my girlfriends like busty and like curvy, because I loved Sailor Moon. I loved the idea of like a women with long legs and like high heels kicking ass, taking names, I just wanted to be that. I wanted to be a Sailor Scout. And so I physically cannot be a Sailor Scout, but I can draw myself as one. And that's kind of like where the transition went into, I wanted to draw myself as what I wish I could be, so like being in high school and kind of like having like a unibrow and like hairy ass legs and like and a shaved head, because I shaved my head sophomore year in high school because I thought it would be funny, like genuinely I thought it'd be funny. Nobody thought it was funny.
I was gonna say I can't imagine it not being funny.
Everybody thought I was either gay or dying of cancer. Like nobody.
Is this post Britney meltdown or before Britney's meltdown? This was
post Britney meltdown.
Okay,
so,
okay.
And I kept trying to tell people, I was trying to be funny. I was kind of going for like, like a more comical, like maybe Sigourney Weaver, Alien, kind of, like nobody. Nobody laughed. And my mom had a fucking nervous breakdown when she saw it.
Oh, I'll bet.
But yeah, so that was like kind of like the transition going into more not safe for work stuff. But I still didn't start doing not safe for work stuff until like 3 years ago. I wanted to out of high school, and like once I stopped going to college, I still kept up drawing and making comics. And a lot of the time I'd make comics about like, heartbreaks or like social situations happening, random things happening in my life. It would kind of be like a daily like, oh, this is what happened. Yeah. And so after breakup after breakup, and still kind of just like changing jobs, like working at Adventure City and then working at Costco and then working at like Panera and then Disneyland and the school, just working day jobs, but then still trying to like make a comic a day or make a post a day and just posting it on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And slowly like I started building a bit more of like people like enjoying like the comics I made and actually wanting more. And so it didn't start kind of picking up until Inktober of I think 2017.
Wow.
I made a comic. It was the first time I actually finished an Inktober. The first and only time I actually finished an Inktober.
Nice.
And for those who don't know in the audience what Inktober is, it's a challenge for the month of October where you draw a Halloween themed picture illustration with ink, but honestly it doesn't have to be ink, it could be digital, who cares, but you draw something every day essentially for a month, and you keep it up and it's all under a consistent theme. So 2017 I decided I was gonna I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish Inktober. I'm not gonna just do the first day and forget about it, and so I made a comic series about a werewolf and a vampire. And the vampire is, of course, she got like a big ass and she kind of hot, but she kind of cute, and then the werewolf guy is like trying to hit on her and he's trying to like ask her out. And essentially it's like this whole comic about like how misunderstandings and misinterpretations can lead to like like you overthinking. And so essentially it's like the werewolf guy is like overthinking. He's like, oh, I don't think this girl likes me, and she ends up liking him. And it's just like a simple cute little thing.
Incredibly clever.
It was very. I'll show you some. I'll send you guys some images.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. That sounds pretty cool. Like that sounds like almost like something that would be interesting to just watch, like a 22-minute episode of. Honestly, that sounds really cool.
Funnily enough, I really wanted to remake it. I was thinking about remaking it this year for this Inktober. Just like redo it.
That'd be awesome.
You know what, you guys? You know what? I think I will. I think
you should. No, I'm on board with that for sure.
Party people.
Yeah, I did.
Actually, I got a funny story real quick before you continue.
Yeah,
so my first like NSFW cartoons or anything like that I remember was those ones that they had. It was around the time you were a teenager. Like the churches, they had those weird little comics that would teach you about like gay sex and stuff like that. And the one that I remember specifically,
those are Jack T. Chick comics, and they are legendary.
Yeah, Jack T. That's what it is. Yeah.
If you can get your hands on them, they are a scream.
They're so funny.
Yeah, so one of them was like talking about gay sex between two men, and it was like a man giving another man oral sex with like Jesus's hand on his shoulder or something like that. And it was just the most, like as a kid, I'm thinking like, this is the most absurd stuff I've ever seen in my life. Because I had already been, my best friend's mom is gay, so I'd already been like attached to the gay community from like childhood. So seeing these things in like these Christian literature, it used to just like, it was the most comical shit ever.
No, the Jack Chick comics are famously explicit. Like, considering they're trying to get you to be a really good Christian and repent, like, it depicts this stuff, and the women will be just like voluptuous and gorgeous and beautifully rendered, and you can tell the artist is having a really good time.
Yeah, it's almost
it'll show two men making out, and they're like listening, and again they're trying to scare you away from it.
Yeah,
but simultaneously
they're kind of
drawing you in. Yeah, that's what I think. I think that like the guy had like all of these like
Pent up.
subconscious stuff.
Yeah.
And this is his subconscious playing out in his, because that's literally the first thing that I can think of whenever you say NSFW art. That is like the
That's
first
what you think of.
pinpoint of
Guys
like my
sucking the other
childhood
guy's
seeing
cock
these
with
comics.
Jesus in it.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is now Jack Chick, the guy who did all those, he started out doing the artwork, and his artwork was terrible, but they became a hit, and so he would hire these
Oh.
semi decent artists, but he was directing them, so he was sitting there going, okay, now when you show these guys making out, you gotta make the pectorals really
He's got a John K approach to it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Add another
yeah.
vein into that penis. Yeah.
So you did this. This sounds like a super cool interaction between the werewolf and the vampire. What happened when you finished that?
So I finished it for the first time, and finished something for the first time, and I was surprised by the response. A lot of people really liked it. They wanted me to do more, if anything. I couldn't get myself to do more. I think at the time I was kind of paralleling my relationship that was blossoming at the time with an ex. I was kind of like, my relationship was developing and we were in this uncertain phase, and so I kind of used that emotion and drew this comic. And so the idea of making a sequel to it kind of came off disingenuous, because there was no real emotion behind it. There was
Right.
no real drive other than just make another.
Right.
But that it boosted my confidence in being able to complete something. It made me feel like, okay, people do like seeing what I draw. I just have to keep doing it more.
Right.
And that was kind of the point where I was like, I can try and be an artist online and make a living off of it. And maybe I can do that, So I would do the classic commission posts like, hey, I'll do a commission for you. And I did that for a couple of years, but then one person commissioned me. They asked me if I did not safe for work. And this was the first not safe for work digital drawing and commission proper art I did forever. And it was just of a classic cheerleader bending over with you see her ass and her pussy, and she has pom-poms, it's a very simple concept. And I found it to be a challenge, because it's this weird thing where it's oh, I've always wanted to draw stuff like this, and now there's money involved, and so I remember being really nervous about it. Nervous that oh fuck, people like my art online, but what if they don't like my naked art? What if my anatomy isn't good enough? What if it just looks too weird, or it's uncomfortable? You know what I mean? Those just very simple questions you would ask yourself as an artist, and also being oh, I have a personality online.
Yeah.
Am I going to associate the two?
Right. Now, see, that's something I find really interesting. So you did that first one. How did it make you feel? Were they happy with it?
Oh, they loved it. They loved it. And I was like, okay, I want to show people that I did this without getting in trouble on Twitter and Instagram, because Twitter doesn't like naked stuff, but then at the same time weirdly does for certain accounts. It's really weird. But Instagram is no naked ever. So I was like, okay, where can I post this? Newgrounds.com.
Newgrounds. Yeah, I love Newgrounds. Yeah.
Where porn is totally fine. Everything by everyone.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? Any not safe for work art that I do as commissions, I'm just gonna post on Newgrounds. And I think that cheerleader one is still up there on there. Huh. But yeah, when I look back at it now, I'm like, ugh, that could have been better. But at the time, I remember
for every drawing they've ever done ever.
True, yeah. And so that kind of is what opened the doors. That's when I was like, okay, I will do not safe for work art if they ask.
Right.
I'm not going to promote it, but I will do it if they ask. And I started getting more from the same guy. And then I had some other just commissioners who were regular commissioners who found out I did not safe for work and were like, can we commission you? And I was like, sure. And drawing drawing not safe for work art, it makes you feel like promiscuous. It makes you feel like, it kind of makes you feel sexy because you get to like draw something sexy, it's like, it's a mood. And so, so I was like, you know what, this is cool.
Yeah.
And I get an upcharge and people don't
Oh,
care.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, see, it's one of those things that like I a while back I actually lost a whole slew of Twitter followers because somebody pointed out to me some not safe for work art that somebody did based on a cartoon that I worked on, and everybody wanted me to be horrified, and everybody wanted me to be outraged, and my response was kind of like, yeah, okay, it's nicely drawn, what of it?
I never understood that. I never understood outrage over like.
Here's the thing, I understand.
Don't look at it. You know what I mean? If you don't like it, don't look at it. Like,
Exactly.
why are you complaining about something? Just scroll past it, click report, block, whatever you want to do, and go on about your day.
I do get it for this reason. When it's based on something that people grew up with and they have this strong connection as a child with, they get very emotional when they feel as though this it's almost like having a good friend being portrayed poorly, but and I get that. So if anyone's watching, I get it. I get where you come from, so don't look at it, it'll just upset you. But be aware, much like all of the not safe for work art that's out there, this type of thing has existed since cartoons existed.
Yeah.
Like, when I first discovered it and it was brought up and everyone wanted to be horrified, I was like, have you guys ever seen the Tijuana Bibles? And now I don't know if you know what those are.
I have no clue what they are either.
Back in like the 20s and 30s, I don't know why I don't know why exactly they're called Tijuana Bibles. I'm assuming because they were done in Tijuana. But what they are little mini comics based on popular comic strips, but they're pornographic. It's Dagwood and Blondie having very explicit sex, or it's Popeye. Yeah, it's Popeye having very explicit sex.
And with Jesus' hand on his shoulder.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, with Jesus' hand on his shoulder.
So the point is, this kind of parody has existed from the beginning of time. And as I said at the beginning, I've seen a lot of not safe for work art that I find absolutely repugnant. And I've seen other nots, like yours. I wouldn't even call it pornography because I find it incredibly charming, like your drawing style.
Oh, thank you.
You mentioned that it's this combination of like sort of classic cartoons and anime. That's exactly what I like about it. And when I've seen your and again, I'm one of those people, I like to draw naked ladies too. Like there's something, and I think there's, people see nudity and they automatically equate it with
deviancy,
something much more lascivious than it is.
Yeah.
I
think it's because of how I think most of us were raised.
Yeah.
How it's kind of looked down upon, or it's like too close to the devil,
Right.
Yeah. Fortunately for me, I was raised by my mom's a godless heathen, so she's an atheist. So I never really in our house, art was never really restricted. Not like porn was a free for all or nothing, but questionable art or questionable movies and stuff like that. We really just we just got to watch whatever kind of thing. And
so did we.
Yeah.
We were Catholic, but if I drew, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, if I drew something promiscuous, because that not safe for work piece I did, that wasn't the only time I drawn naked lewdy stuff. If I've done it personally for myself, like when I was like 13, I was like,
yeah,
and then she touches his wiener,
Yeah.
Little comics, like, whoa. But if my parents saw that, they would literally just ignore it. I don't think any of my parents would ever acknowledge that. Like, they'd just be like,
it doesn't exist. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, well, that's a cool thing about like NSFW stuff too. Going back to he's talking about the Tijuana Bibles and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know this about NSFW type stuff and pornography and anything in that vein of not safe for work. It literally has driven industries. Without like the pornographic industry deciding that they wanted to go with VCR tapes instead of Betamaxes, we would all have had Betamaxes. If they wanted to go with HD DVDs instead of Blu-ray, we would have ended ended up with that. So it is a huge influential thing on a lot of the industry and stuff.
But now, see, contrary to both your guys' upbringings, I was not raised Catholic. I was raised very Norman Rockwell style Midwestern Christian.
Saturday Morning Post Christian.
Yes. And yet my parents, who, my dad was born in 1930, so they were old fashioned folks.
Yeah.
And yet when it became clear that I was going to be an artist for a living, they got me, they knew I wanted it, and they got me a book of artwork by Boris Vallejo. And I don't know if you know who that is, but he's famous for doing like Conan the Barbarian style, lots of nudity and lots of just like muscle men and
posing women,
and,
grabbing legs,
stuff like that. They got me a book of that because they're like, look, you're an artist, you're going to see this stuff. And again, what I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand is the act of not only just drawing this kind of work, but also interacting with it and looking at it is not necessarily the same as the relationship one has with, say, pornography.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I'm sure for some people, they're synonymous and they use them in the same ways. And again, that's fine as long as you're not hurting anybody. But there is a difference, and it's noticeable. And so that's why I say when I look at your work, I don't think pornography. It's certainly erotic, and it's certainly it's naughty,
suggestive, and
it's suggestive
promiscuous,
and naughty, but it's also got a tremendous amount of charm. It's even got what I would call innocence. And I'm curious to know now, since you started, how has your style and how has your sort of voice in the Not Suitable for Work art, kind of evolved?
So at first I was like, okay, I need to have like one character that is like my Betty Boop. You know what I mean? I need to have a character that's like, it's like I can translate kind of a bit of my personality into, but it's not me because I don't do that shit,
Right.
So I was like, oh, I had this little bee character for a long time. She pretty much was just she's human, but she's yellow and has a stinger, and she's got little wings, before she was way more bee-like she had a thorax and everything, but I slowly translated to just human ass. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use her as like a sexy pinup. So at first it started being like sexy pinups, like fun posing, like maybe her sitting on a cake topless, or maybe her on a stripper pole, winking at the camera. Right. Just fun little pinups. And that slowly translated into comics, because I love drawing little comics. And so it would be like, oh, she's at work and has to go in the freezer to grab sausages. I wonder what will happen, or, oh, she's at work. I'm doing a series right now where it's her name is Veronica, because her name is not Veronica. She's not me. But she it's a series where she goes to work and horny ensues, she has to make 1 million copies. Okay, she'll copy a picture of her pussy, and then she's gonna put it in the mailbox for everyone to see, and the boss is gonna get mad and then fuck her, or like like the sausages, like all the sausages come to life and fuck her, and so it kind of just like it slowly translated into like things happen, but I never take it to the point where it's legitimately her being like railed and it's like graphic and it's, you know what I mean? Like I never take it there. I make it horny enough and cute enough where it's like interesting and fun, but never to the point where it's like, all right, I can get off to this. I don't make it that like intense.
It almost reminds me of burlesque,
So, I think of it as like kind of like Playboy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See, I've got 2 books on my shelf. Little Annie Fanny, which was a comic strip that ran in Playboy magazines from I think the early 60s through the 80s, and it was done by a lot of the original Mad Magazine artists.
Wow.
Harvey Kurtzman, who again he started it, and it was his big departure from Mad Magazine, because he created Mad Magazine and then went on to do this comic strip called Little Annie Fanny that was sort of a parody of Little Orphan Annie, but it was with this Marilyn Monroe style buxom girl in all of her adventures getting, as you say, railed everywhere she goes. And a lot of really, really top artists worked on this thing. Jack Davis and just all these legends from Mad Magazine worked on this thing. And that's why I say I equate it to burlesque. And the more I sort of because I've always loved pinup art, and I do pinup art. Like, I love doing pinup art. And again, there's really not a there's not a lascivious relationship going on there. I just like the aesthetic of it, and it's just really appealing. And I went down this whole rabbit hole, and I think I mentioned this to you when you came over as well, an artist I would encourage everyone to look at, Dan DeCarlo.
Oh yes,
one of the most legendary of the Archie comics artists. He did a bunch of girly and gag comics of, again, same type of stuff. Girl bends over and the boss grabs her ass, or woman on the phone wearing nothing but a nightie talking to her friend about taking all her husband's money. Just like really 40s and 50s style, naked girls and gags.
And I love that.
They're beautifully illustrated. And but this is the guy who did Archie.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I like the Playboy cartoons as well.
But he ostensibly sort of cemented the Archie style that we all sort of knew. And so that's why I say now when you fell into the NSFW sort of world, did you then discover that there was a whole community around it? And did they embrace you? Did you embrace them? What was that?
There were, so once I started kind of being more suggestive and kind of gravitating more towards the not safe for work stuff, I had already had a good handful of friends in the art community, like our little art circle, like Newgrounders and Twitter artists that I met along the way, like years, who also started doing not safe for work art, or just have always done. And so I would say, like, the community, like, everyone supports each other. If someone's like making like a new series, or they're promoting like a little comic strip, or even just starting something different that's not even not safe for work, we always typically tend to support each other, uplift each other. And the very first commission I did, I reached out to a mutual who is a very, very popular not safe for work artist, like very popular. And him and I had been friends for a couple years at that point, and I was like, hey, listen, this is the first time I'm doing something like this. Can I send you my drawing, and can you like draw over it to show me how it could be better?
Oh wow.
And he did. And he was like, yeah, the ass should not be over here. The ass should be like right here. And then you should move the boobs over here. And and then I'll give you a better shot of the pussy. And I'm just like, and so I have found that the not safe for work art community everyone is just helpful and uplifting, and everybody likes seeing the other people's like tits and asses, like, I don't think I've ever felt like a competitiveness, because typically in animation, you feel competitiveness towards others. I or at least, maybe it's just me. I don't know if you agree with this, but there is like a weird competitiveness when it comes to animation or working in animation, that I don't experience in like online art, like not safe for work art content, because everybody pays for horny. And everybody wants a different type of horny,
Yeah.
It's funny, because the animation industry, the real honest to goodness industry is ferociously competitive.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, and look, back when I was in LA and working on Zim and Fairly Odd Parents and Teenage Robot and all that stuff, I was fortunate enough, dare I say blessed, to fall into some really, just tremendously nice groups of people who are still my friends to this day, and really just, very support. Like, I always go back to Rob Renzetti's one of just the greatest guys there is. And I met a ton of people like him, where they are nothing but supportive, and they're nothing but, they become your very best friends, and they try and elevate you, and they try and help you, and we help each other and that sort of thing. And all we want to do is sell around shows so that we can all work together, blah, blah, blah. But then there's the flip side to that coin that is just ferociously competitive, and people will backstab you and talk badly about you. Even creators of shows will do that to their employees that leave and they're not happy with. It gets very Hollywood. And
Yeah.
what I've found since becoming active on Twitter, and certainly ever since I started Fountain's Pen Productions, where it's all just all of us making stuff because it's fun, there's like, it's nothing but support, and it's nothing but good vibes and that sort of thing. So it's an unfortunate thing to me that the actual, sort of
The
base,
actual industry.
the
Yeah.
actual
Yes.
industry, yes, you can find pockets of people who are super supportive, but by the same, like,
I feel like you have to go
we-
through like tons of other people who are shittier to you to
Yeah.
find those good people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the show, but on at least, two major shows that I worked on where I was a director, I knew the whole time that my board artist was bucking for my job and couldn't wait to find a way to get me fired. And it's just like, wow, really? Because you're someone that I hired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the
Which
fuck?
brings up something I also wanted to ask you. I mean, you're now you did the animation for Meeting Halfway, right? And you've done little
Yes.
animation. You're a good animator.
Thank you.
I dare say you're an exceptional. You're a very good animator. Your style is real appealing. Have you ever aspired to break into the industry, or?
Funnily enough, always wanted to. Always wanted to. I always wanted to break in the industry. Are you kidding me? Like it's cartoons are my passion. And if I did, I'd want to do storyboarding or like some or cleanup. Something. I like line work and I like quickly sketching. And so but I for years I always was kind of like for a while like for like since like 2014 that was when I wanted to start breaking into the industry to like I want to say about 2 years ago or a year ago. I had this mentality where it's like I'm going to break into the industry. I got to make my reel. I got to do this. I got to do that. But then life gets in the way and it's like, oh, I have to do commissions. And then I end up taking like 40 commissions that takes me like a year to finish, all at once, and then that's like a whole year gone and other little things that I've done in between there. Or it's like, oh, I want to go travel to meet my husband, so it's like, oh, I'm going to take on a bunch of commissions, work, and then go visit him in Ireland. And that's like, months taken off. And so it kind of was just like me living my life got into the way of me actually putting in the work to make a proper demo reel.
Right.
To start pitching myself and applying for jobs.
That kind of stuff is a whole job in and of itself.
Yes.
Like it becomes your full-time job is looking for a job.
And so now I'm at the point where I'm like,
why bother?
Okay, well, actually, no, it's the opposite. I'm like, I want to try and break in the industry. I want to try.
Geez. Well, if you ever need a reference, I'm happy to.
Oh, thank you.
So anything I can do, let me know.
Actually, if you want to look at my demo or my site and tell me what I can fix and make better.
Nothing. You already draw and animate better than me. Why do you think? Why do you think I look for other people to work with? I look for people who are better than me. I hate the way I draw. Which actually,
I love the way you draw, though.
You like the way you draw?
You know what? Yes, I do like the way I draw. I like the way I draw, but it took years for me to like the way that I draw. I hated how I drew and always wished I could draw like somebody else.
Now
that was my problem.
I'm notorious. If you look through my body of work from literally age 0 to I'm going to be 53 this year, you will see every year who I'm copying. And who
influenced you.
It went from Garfield to Doonesbury to Bloom County to, Peanuts to like, you can just, to Evan Dorkin, you can just always tell who I'm ripping off. And
okay, let me ask this then.
Yeah.
With that in mind, do you feel like because of that, you have kind of created a skill for yourself to replicate different art styles? Like, good.
Oh, 100%.
Well, great.
And yet it's what allowed me to work in animation is being able to work in a lot of different styles. And yet I had the reputation, and very well deserved, of being, people would say John is a great board artist, but he's horribly off model. Like I would always get it just close enough to get the job, but that was always every director's complaint about me was I was always off model. And I would always just be like, it's because your models are too restrictive. Now this sort of brings us full circle, which is probably a good idea because we probably have to let you go pretty soon. But I'm curious now, you've been, I get the impression you do this work very regularly, but you're doing the tremendous podcast Meeting Halfway with your husband Mark, which, by the way, folks, if you haven't listened to it, it's really great. I really enjoy it. And it's not, you have a lot of animation and a lot of game people on, but they're just really compelling interviews. Whether you're into this stuff or not, you guys are really good at interviewing people. And I listen to interviews from you guys about topics that I ordinarily would not give two rats' asses about.
Like 5 Nights at Freddy's and Baba Booey.
Yeah, you guys make it interesting. So everyone, please, check out Meeting Halfway.
Yeah, for sure.
Between Meeting Halfway now and your artwork, and I know you and Mark have a lot of other things going on, where do you see yourself going from this point?
Hopefully, Mark and I are working on a very big project right now. And so hopefully we'll see that we can announce that later in the year. So I look forward to seeing the turnaround for that. I'm hoping that with the podcast, we're able to kind of like use it as a way to collaborate with other artists as well. Like we want to kind of shake it up and do fun and new different things. Right. Because we're not solely focused on like trying to make the podcast like the new big Joe Rogan, like we were like, oh, we just want to have fun with this and be able to kind of like collaborate with artists and people who are very influential to us.
Was I your favorite guest?
You were one of our favorite guests, actually. Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Well, and Rusty, I apologize. I've not let you.
Nah, you're good.
Even a tiny bit. But
yeah, you're doing great.
This is just one of those days where I cannot be.
Well, I'm like I said before, I'm like DJ Khaled. I'm just here to bring it all together. I don't animate. I don't draw. I'm just a fan of animation. So getting to sit and have conversations with people who love what I love, even though I can't do it, it's priceless. I couldn't put a dollar amount on it.
I know what you mean. Like I always love hearing other people talk about their passions.
Well, especially because I'm like 32 and I like deliver wine for a living, and I've only been podcasting for like a year and a half, 2 years, and to get to where I am now and doing a show with like somebody in the industry, not only in the industry but like Wild Thornberries is the first show he worked on, and Wild Thornberries was like a show I watched from beginning to end probably 100 times, at that time frame in my life. So it's just cool to be a part of all this stuff. But I did have I'm like Nardwuar, the human serviette. If you're familiar with him, I try to come up with obscure questions or obscure facts or something about the guests, or try to ask something that somebody might not have heard of yet. So
yeah, I have exactly one more question. So you get out everything you want to get out, and let's end on, because I have one more. Question.
Okay, yeah, this is all I have. This is all I have for it. So I hear that you go by the Little Lion King Princess or the Donkey Kong S. So I'm a big gamer myself. So I hear you're a bug catching expert on one of the hardest Sega games there is, the Lion King. So kind of talk about that a little bit, because I'm a big gaming nerd myself. I have a huge video game collection. So.
Ooh. So my first our first console my family ever had, like growing up, was a Super Nintendo. And we had the Super Nintendo Lion King. Sorry, not the Genesis one. We had the Super Nintendo Lion King, and we had like Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Country 2, Mega Man X, Aladdin, everything. A shit ton of games. And so growing up, though, Donkey Kong Country was like, me and all my siblings loved Donkey Kong Country. But I was terrified. I was absolutely fucking terrified of the game over. Like the game over to that game is actually, like, even to this day, it makes me unsettled. Like deep into my stomach core, I'm like, because it's just Donkey Kong. It's a render of Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong beat the fuck up in a dark ass room, and this like doomsday music behind them, and like that, being 5 years old and you play this game because you don't fucking know how to play, and then you see that, you're like, of course, it's terrifying. So it terrified me so much that whenever I play the game, as soon as I was getting close to like 1 balloon or 0 balloons, I would just reset the game, and I'd never save. So I'd always have to restart the game the next time I played. So I played the beginning of that game so many times that it ended up just being good at it. So I ended up just learning how to be good at it because I was so scared of the game over. And so
that's funny.
I collaborated with my ex-boyfriend at the time, who's my friend now. His name is Chris. And he goes by Oni and G online, but he had a Let's Play channel called Oni Plays, and he was playing Donkey Kong with a couple of our friends and asked me to come on. And he knew that I was like, that's like my game. And so my friend Zach, who was a guest on that episode, was like, I kept like fucking up trying to show them the secret. And so my friend Zach made fun of me. He was like, "Oh, you call yourself the so-called Donkey Kong guess, huh?" And they all started laughing. And so a bunch of fans who had watched that episode only referred to me as the Donkey Kong guess. So anytime that carried on even till now, now.
That's funny that you say Oni Plays, because I just looked on my YouTube and I'm actually subscribed to that page. That's funny.
Oh,
yeah.
I dug right away that you like Donkey Kong as opposed to Mario, because I feel like, Mario gets so much attention, but it all started with the Kong.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's his it's his franchise.
It's his franchise.
Like,
when you think Mario, he's the first he's like the first character, outside of Mario that I think of is Donkey Kong and then Peach, of course, but it was before Bowser. He's like the original villain. Yeah,
he is.
And of course, I'm aging myself here, but I was there when Donkey Kong came along. I was one of the kids pumping quarters into the very first. It's
actually one of the obscure pieces of animation that I actually like is the movie. They had like a Donkey Kong animated movie that came out around that era.
The crystal coconut one.
Yeah. That was so good.
That's actually mocapped.
That's mocap? Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. That's awesome. That's a great movie.
It was a Japanese company, because they had a television series and the whole thing is mocapped. That's why like some of the movements are like this. It looks like kind of weird,
Yeah. I noticed
fluid.
That. Yeah.
They don't have there's no like key posing, so it doesn't look like stylistic.
No.
It's just like all like wiggly. But they made the series, and that was I think shown on Fox Kids for a bit. And then they had the movie, The Crystal Coconut, and that was available on VHS. I had that growing up. But to continue answering your question, Lion King, apparently everyone said that the Lion King game is like one of the hardest games.
Yeah, it is
one of them.
It is one of them for sure.
I can finish that game in less than like fucking 45 minutes. Like that game
is crazy.
I love that game, and it's just because I was a kid and I would just play it over and over and over. And I loved Lion King growing up. So it's that and Donkey Kong and Cuphead. Those are the three games I just.
Yeah, my sister really likes Cuphead. My sister's a huge Cuphead fan. She's probably played that game. That might be the only video game she plays. Actually, I'm not really sure she plays anything else.
Cuphead is amazing. There's no way I can play it because I'm quite certain I'll have a stroke. But I love just looking at it.
It is so beautiful, and it's so inspiring. Every time I play it again, I'm always like, I kind of want to animate something. I kind of
right, yeah. Well, and it also goes to show that like indie things are awesome. B, everybody always thinks that now that the new technology has come along, this is the only thing anybody's ever going to be into. No, people like variety, and again, this has become my mantra on the show. Good is good. If something is good, it doesn't matter how flashy your graphics are or how terrific anything is. Good is just good. And and again, Cuphead is one of those things. You look at it and you see love there. And it shows in the work. And that's why in a weird way, it's a shame that you're not currently a superstar in the mainstream animation industry. But in a way, I'd hate to see it happen because I wouldn't want it to crush your soul. Because
I know what you mean.
Like the stuff that you're doing right now is stuff that you're passionate about and stuff that you're actually, and it's, by the way, your tour across America that you guys did, it shows in the work that you're doing. And so it's really refreshing, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because I admire people who do this kind of thing.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on because we know that it's early in California, and we made all kinds of last minute demands and all this stuff.
Oh, don't worry, you're doing me a favor.
but I have one more question.
Yes. And
I want you to answer honestly, and I want you to expand on your answer.
Okay.
Favorite episode of Fairly Odd Parents and why?
Oh God. What's really funny is Mark is working on a Fairly Odd Parents ranking
Oh, I know.
Yeah. You, of
Ooh.
course, you know. And we're at season 5 now, and I think this is where it starts getting not very good. This point.
Yeah,
in
the show
series.
started going south right around the time that I
3.
left, but I'm sure that's a coincidence.
It's fine. Every time we're like, that was boarded so well. Look, John Fountain. Every time, I think my favorite episode. Father in Time. It's Father in Time and a partnership.
Both mine.
I love it. So I think I quote that episode so much too. But you used to call it the Timmy.
Does Mark have any King of the Hill King of the Hill stuff? Does he have any like
you
rankings?
No. I don't know if Mark has ever really watched a lot of King of the Hill.
Doesn't seem like his bag.
Yeah.
I think he's watched more of it than I have, though. I didn't grow up with King of the Hill. But you know what reminds me of it is F is for Family.
I love that show.
That is a great show.
We had a whole episode of this show where we talked about adult animation, stuff like that. And I was into the first season of King of the Hill, and then just kind of fell off. And a lot of stuff that everybody else loves, for whatever reason, just doesn't speak to me. Like Family Guy doesn't speak to me. American Dad doesn't speak to me.
Not anymore.
But F is for Family, when that came out, never mind the fact that it's called F is for Family. I just think it was really original and really cool. It was honestly, original in the fact that it was not trying to be particularly original. It was. I know
what you mean.
So
it definitely stands apart as far as adult comedies, because I feel like the subject matter and how it's handled is really honest.
Yeah.
Like it comes from a really honest place.
Which now let's make this the last question, and we'll let this be sort of the button on it, because this is something I used to ask my animation students when I taught at Cal Arts. You're given an unlimited budget to create a show for any network you want. What does your show look like?
What does it look like?
What would your show be?
What would the show be? Oh man, if I were to make a series, I would honestly love to make a type of sitcom cartoon similar to kind of like Friends, where it's like, a group of friends all kind of growing up together, but as they grow up, and they obviously grow apart, because that's what happens when you grow up. But it would be similar to like Friends, and I would have it in a kind of UPA art style, like my art style, but like UPA type backgrounds, like simplistic colored backgrounds. Like where like the fill tool is kind of moved a little bit, and they have line work, and
right.
And it would just be about life and relationships, and I would want to put what I have learned since I'd been sober into that. I would want to put like how I've handled my emotions now, things that I've learned about like relationships and friendships, episode about expectations and how you really shouldn't have some, things like that, so kind of like I would make a cartoon based off the life lessons that I have learned as I've developed, and make those like kind of episodes, and there'd be like a romance and maybe like a love triangle here and there, like that kind of like life, a slice of life comedy.
I think that sounds fantastic.
Now, the only reason why I asked about King of the Hill was because that's how me and F met. The other podcast that I do is episode by episode rewatch of King of the Hill. So we have like a Monday episode and a Friday episode. So our Friday episodes, we just have anybody that I can get to be a guest. And I had messaged F, like it took months because it was around the holiday season, but F kept me like on his Rolodex and hit me back up, because I'd written it off that I was going to get an interview with him, and he hits me back up like 3 months later, like, hey, I finally have time. And I was like, oh, well, I would just assume that it was not going to happen. So I'd asked him if he wanted to start this podcast. So I guess that kind of wraps up the whole thing there.
That was right around the time when I really started aggressively whoring myself.
Yeah.
And
you have to. You gotta
have
show
to.
yourself.
Yeah, you got
But
to.
you know what? Call me a whore, but it's fun. I like it. I enjoy it.
It is
And
fun.
what a great note to end the not suitable for work.
Yeah.
Call me a whore. That's fun.
Veronica, honestly, I feel like we could go on for another hour.
I
but
know,
unfortunately,
I know.
We've got to go, and we've all got stuff to do. Thank you so much for coming on. This was
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Will you please come on again sometime?
I would love to. And Mark can join me.
Yeah, that would be great. We'd love to have him on too. And again, thanks for being a part of the show. It's
thank
been
you guys.
been a blast. It's been a lot of fun creating the show. Period with F. I appreciate you again, F.
Zigga zigga ah, party people.
If do you have anything you want to plug before we go, real quick?
Yeah. If you guys want to see fun, sexy, not safe for work stuff, you should join my Patreon. It's just patreon.com/Veronica&Jelly.
Well, there you go. I'll add that link down in the description below. And that's it. That's been a conversation about animation here on the Animation Conversation.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
By the way.
And that brings us to the end of another incredible episode of Animation Conversation. We hope you enjoyed this animated adventure as much as we did. Remember, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels or through good old-fashioned email. We value your input and want to make Animation Conversation a podcast that resonates with animation lovers like you. Our Instagram and Twitter are @AnimationConvo. Our YouTube is @AnimationConversation. Our email is theanimationconvo@gmail.com. Before we say our final goodbyes, we want to remind you to stay animated. Keep exploring, appreciating, and sharing the magic of animation with others. Let your imagination soar and let the world of animated wonders continue to inspire and captivate you. Thank you once again for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, this is Wubcake, signing off for Animation Conversation. Keep watching, keep dreaming, and keep the animation conversation alive.